it's really baking storytelling into everything that organizations are doing. We look at marketing and like corporate marketing as kind of the exemplar examples, and they are doing really good storytelling, and inherently they are extractive corporations. So the social impact groups have more of an advantage when we are storytelling because it's much more authentic, because we really are trying to make the change that we're talking about.
Yeah. And the thing that I've realized is there are similar starting points, but where we go from there is wildly different. And so when I think about storytelling though, right, it's in the corporate space, they're good at it and it ends, right? And for us, it's the beginning.
Mm.
Right? Like the storytelling should be the beginning of someone and or a deepening of engagement, right? Like I think there are two ways to think about stories. Like either we're trying to move people to action through story, or we're trying to get them to come and join us, right? To join us. And once they've joined us, though, we want to keep reinforcing the stories, right? Like because we want them to keep feeling that value, right? Because once we donate, once we volunteer, it's not over, right? Like we want a next, and the stories help keep us engaged and puts us in the story, right? It's just those layers of deeper engagement, right? Like you're not telling a story to just get someone to make that one transaction. It's to go deeper, um
Yeah.
on what I like to think of as a journey of engagement, right? Like how does that story start the journey, or how's it showing up in the middle of the journey, and how's that story then part of your story, right? Like how are you weaving together those stories, because I think about too, when you think about like issues, people like volunteering on issues, you hear them sometimes repeating someone's story, right?
Right.
They're like, yeah, I care about this, and like I had heard this story,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what made me want to volunteer full time, or what, whatever it is, right? There's that, like, often that is a pivot point.
Yeah. And I think what was really interesting about what you just said is like that they felt this way. Like I feel like with storytelling, it's so much more emotion focused, and like that is such a deeper level of interacting with people that can build momentum, like community. It's far beyond just like one simple email sign up or something. It's deeper than that. It's a relationship.
The other thing that, to get wonky, it's part of one of the pieces we do on storytelling that we include in some of our deeper trainings, but um I don't think Harvard studied this, but it was in the Harvard Business Review, which I would really encourage folks working in digital to like read the
Yeah.
Harvard Business Review, because a lot of it is about psychology and human engagement. Someone had done research on like the four kinds of learners, right? It's like visual, auditory, vis visual. Oh, people who need to learn by doing, people who need to learn by doing, people who learn by seeing, people who learn by hearing. There's a
Okay.
fourth, and maybe there's not a fourth. Um, yeah, it's probably partially the joy of ADHD, of like, which I have, of like, I have to number things and numbers don't always work out. I'm like, I'm pretty sure, maybe not. But
Yeah.
anyways, what story does is it bridges them all.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't recite it perfectly, but for people who need, um, some people can learn by reading, right? So people can learn by reading, they can read a story. People who are visual learners, though, story activates the visual part of our mind,
Mm.
and that cues up their visual learning. And people who are more auditory, if it's written as a story, it will often also light up that part of their brain, which I thought was nuts. I was like, oh, an experiential story, um, for experiential learners, story allows them to put themselves in the experience. They can actually see the experience in their mind because it's told as a story. So when you're thinking about like actually getting someone to understand an issue or wanting to get involved in an issue, a story, it's like just this amazing bridge between all four, which I knew the power of story, and then when I read that, I was like, oh, that's the science of the power of story.